G'day, it's Neil. This is the 14th and maybe the last episode of Practice Leading, at least for now. Let me fill you in on the backstory. I co-founded Superware in 2020 with 5 other co-founders, and I launched Practice Leading at the end of 2024 to share my journey trying to grow Superware as a Microsoft practice. The idea was to interview leaders in the Microsoft partner ecosystem that are a few steps ahead of me, and to learn from them and to share their experience and their lessons with you as well. But I stepped down as Superware's chief executive last month, and this feels like a good time to wrap up the Practice Leading podcast as I try and take things in a different direction. I want to thank you for joining me on my journey, and I especially want to thank the team at Superware and all the guests who joined me on Practice Leading. Mohamed Mostafa, Joel Lindstrom, Bob Bell, Nancie Calder, Areti Iles, Kapcari, Lucy Bourne, Ole Gjerde. I hope you enjoyed hearing from them and learning from them just as much as I did. Episode 9 was a retrospective episode reflecting on the lessons learned from the first 8 interviews, and it was amazing to recap everything I'd learned in such a short space of time. I had grand plans for Practice Leading at one point, dreams of creating a peer-to-peer community for Microsoft partner practice leaders with an online forum and in-person meetups adjacent to Microsoft conferences like Build and Ignite and MVP Summit. I did manage to launch the online community platform, Practice Leading Lab, which is where you can download the podcast's key takeaways. But the online events never made it onto the calendar. And the first in-person event that I tried to run the weekend before MVP Summit in Bellevue in March earlier this year never quite got the numbers needed to run and had to be pulled back in January. But why quit Superware? Well, I'll share a couple of reasons with you, and I apologize to my co-founders if they ever listen to this and feel like I'm oversharing. But honestly, recording a podcast episode is far cheaper than seeing a therapist. So bear with me, here goes. Back in 2020, I had a vision to build an ISV business, an independent software vendor that built industry applications for Australia's superannuation funds, which is our retirement system. Early on, we did develop a prototype and we successfully deployed our first enterprise CRM app specifically configured for superannuation for one super fund. But it took a couple of years before we hired a salesperson. And even then, the sales cycle for those kinds of enterprise apps in that sector isn't measured in months, it's years. So it was slow going. My co-founders were losing faith in the idea of building industry enterprise applications instead of doing regular project-based work, which is where we were generating 95% of our revenues. And they were losing patience with a long sales cycle selling to superannuation funds. For most of the co-founders, the effort they were willing to spend in the evenings and weekends on product development had dropped off to a couple of hours a month. And the desire for high incomes in the short term meant we struggled to have the budget for product development, for marketing and sales. So growth was nowhere near where anyone wanted it to be, but no one was prepared to make the necessary changes either. There was also a philosophical difference between us about how to run a business with 6 co-founders. Do we act like shareholders and appoint a chief executive and a leadership team with defined roles and accountabilities? Or do we run it like a democracy with 6 of us voting on every decision? Co-founder days were pretty tense, circling around the same differences in point of view, time after time with no resolution. A few months ago, we engaged a corporate mediator to help us work through the issues and come up with ideas for moving forward. And a big thanks to our mediator, Shiv Martin. She has been amazing. In the first session, when she brought us together, she asked us to outline our goals and our desires for Superware. And I shared a 6-point manifesto outlining my vision for the business. And I'll share that manifesto in the Practice Leading Lab, and you can download it there and read it if you're curious. Only one other co-founder wrote anything down. I think it was in mediation session number 3, where Shiv asked us all to present our ideas for changing how we work together as unit holders. So our business was structured as a unit trust. And we're all also directors in the business and leaders in the business. One co-founder presented his idea, keep going the way we are going, and I presented the 3 alternative options. And the one that my co-founders voted for unanimously was for me to leave and for them to buy out my units. I resigned at the end of August and handed everything over to them by the end of September. And I'm recording this at the beginning of October 2025, and we're going through a valuation process to determine the value of my units that my co-founders will buy back. Hopefully, that process will get wrapped up in a few weeks, and that will bring the Superware chapter of my life to a close. Honestly, it's not just a bittersweet ending, but just a little bit bitter. At this stage, some days I've felt like I've been forced out of a business that I started by my co-founders. And I don't think any of them have any experience running or building a business before. My daughter asked me if I wanted Superware to kind of crash and burn now that I've left, and I definitely don't. I wish my co-founders all the best. We had a great team of people, and I wish them all the very best at Superware. But I learned a lesson trying to run a business with 6 co-founders. Lots of people told me that it couldn't be done, that I was asking for trouble. And they turned out to be at least partially right. And I think that's because we failed to align ourselves at the outset. Waiting for 5 years before agreeing in writing how we want to run the business, that was nuts. That was a big mistake. That's a lesson I'll take away from that experiment. And as President Jed Bartlett would say on the West Wing TV show, okay, what's next? Well, if you follow me on LinkedIn, you might have noticed I'm launching a new venture. It continues my passion for building solutions for Australia's superannuation funds, but it's going to dive deeper into agentic AI rather than business apps. And it won't be a professional services business or consultancy. And I'm not going to have 5 co-founders again, but I might have 1. And I've bootstrapped my other ventures before, so this time I'm going to try and raise some external funding to accelerate how much of the AI opportunity we can grasp. If you've enjoyed the Practice Leading series, send me a message on LinkedIn. I'd really appreciate it. And if I decide to make a podcast series documenting my progress of my new venture, you'll be the first to know. Thanks for joining me on my Practice Leading journey. I appreciate you and wish you the best as you build your Microsoft practice. Don't forget, you can download those key takeaways from all the episodes of Practice Leading on the Practice Leading Lab, which you'll find if you visit practiceleading.com and click on the Join the Lab button in the top right-hand corner. And that will also include my Superware manifesto that you can read at your leisure as well. Hopefully, we get to meet again soon. Until then, keep experimenting. Bye for now.